Welcome back, and welcome to today's video. The topic we're covering today is one of the most requested in the comments, and also one of the most misunderstood subjects I see all over the internet. We're going to talk about memory, about focus, about that feeling that your mind just isn't what it used to be. And more than just talking about the problem, I'm going to show you exactly what you can do, starting tonight, in your own home, to reverse this process naturally and faster than you ever thought possible. So if you've been forgetting more than you should, if your mental clarity isn't what it was a few years ago, or if mental fatigue hits you way too early in the day, stay with me until the end, because this video was made for you. You're going to understand what's actually causing this, why most of the solutions people try don't really work, and what the path forward looks like for someone who wants real, lasting results. Let's get into it. Have you ever been in the middle of a sentence and just frozen? Not out of nervousness, not because you didn't know what you wanted to say, but because the word, that exact word that was right there on the tip of your tongue a second ago, simply vanished. Gone. And there you were, smiling awkwardly, trying to cover it up, while somewhere inside a voice whispered, "What is happening to me?" Or maybe yours looks different. You walk into the kitchen with a clear purpose in mind, take 2 steps, and stop dead in the middle of the room, completely blank. The mission is gone. You stand there staring at nothing, trying to retrace the mental path that brought you there, and you can't. You walk back to the living room, sit down, and only remember what you went to get when you least expect it, sometimes hours later. Or maybe it's that mental fatigue that just won't lift. You woke up, had your coffee, started your day, and by 3 in the afternoon your head already feels like midnight. You try to focus on something important, and your mind simply refuses to cooperate. You read the same sentence 4 times without absorbing a single word. You start one task, remember another halfway through, go to do the second one, and forget the first. And at the end of the day, you look at what you actually accomplished and think, how is it possible to be this exhausted from doing so little? When you try to tell someone, they laugh it off. They say they're the same way. They blame stress, a busy schedule, just a phase. But you know it's different. You notice it's happening more often than before. You realize it's getting harder to finish a book, that you lose the thread of movies with complex plots, that long conversations leave you mentally drained in a way they never used to. And at some point, alone, you asked yourself a question you didn't have the courage to say out loud. A question that scares you. A question you push under the rug because you don't even want to consider the possibility. I know what that question is. And I need to tell you, before anything else, the answer probably isn't what you're afraid it might be. What's happening to you has a name, an identifiable cause, and, most importantly, a solution. A solution you can start using tonight, in your own home, with ingredients that are probably already sitting in your kitchen right now. But for the solution to make sense, you need to understand the problem. And the problem is simpler than it seems, and at the same time, far more insidious than any doctor has ever told you. There is a process happening silently in your brain right now that medicine calls silent inflammation. No pain, no obvious dramatic symptom, no clear warning. It just keeps building, fueled by stress that never lets up, sleep that's never quite enough, sugar you consume without realizing it, and the toxins that air, water, and processed food deposit into your body day after day, year after year. And this inflammation does one very specific, very devastating thing. It directly disrupts communication between your neurons. Think of it this way. Your brain is a vast network of highways. When everything is working well, information travels those highways at high speed. You think, remember, connect ideas, form words, make decisions, all in fractions of a second you don't even notice. The mind just works. When silent inflammation takes hold, it's as if those highways are gradually filling with potholes, construction zones everywhere, speed limits dropping lower and lower. Traffic still moves, but it's slow, congested, unpredictable. The result is exactly what you've been feeling. That sensation that your thinking just won't click into gear, that you're processing everything through a layer of cotton, that the memory that should be right there simply isn't, as if someone moved the file and you have no idea where it went. But there's an aggravating factor that almost nobody tells you about, and it's the reason so many people improve for a while and then slide right back to square one. Your brain has its own cleaning system, a sophisticated system discovered by science only in 2013 that researchers named the glymphatic system. It operates almost exclusively during deep sleep, sweeping away exactly those toxins and metabolic waste products that accumulate throughout a hard day of mental work. It's why a genuinely good night of sleep leaves your head feeling lighter, and a bad night leaves you slow, irritable, and foggy all day long. But when inflammation is established, this cleaning system becomes seriously compromised. The toxins aren't fully removed, they stay. And the next day, a little more accumulates. And the day after, a little more. Week after week, month after month, this buildup gradually deteriorates your mental clarity. So slowly, you don't notice the change, until the day you stop and realize you're not the same person you were a few years ago. This is not a character flaw. It's not a lack of effort or discipline. It's not a fixed fate. It's biology. And biology, unlike what so many people have led you to believe, can be reversed when you act on the right mechanisms. Before we get into what you can do, I need you to understand why the strategy I'm about to teach you works specifically at night. Because this detail completely changes the effectiveness of the protocol. During deep sleep, your brain literally changes its physical configuration. The spaces between neurons expand by up to 60%, allowing the fluid that bathes the nervous system to flow with far greater force and efficiency. It's as if the drainage pipes in your brain widen overnight, specifically to handle all the cleanup that built up during the day. The researchers who discovered this were struck by the elegance of the mechanism. The brain is smart enough to perform its own maintenance, as long as you give it the right conditions to do so. And that's exactly where most people's problem lies. Because what you do in the hours before sleep determines whether this process happens at full efficiency or limps along at half capacity. If you lie down with an inflamed body, with cortisol, the stress hormone, running high, with your digestive system overloaded from a heavy dinner, and your nervous system still buzzing from screens, your brain will spend most of the night managing those problems, instead of dedicating itself to cleanup and regeneration. You'll sleep 8 hours and wake up tired. Sleep 8 hours and wake up with a heavy head. Sleep 8 hours and still feel slow, foggy, imprecise. Because the sleep happened, but the recovery work didn't get done the way it should have. But if you create the right conditions before bed, if you actively reduce inflammation, calm the nervous system, and give your brain the biochemical signal that it's time to clean, consolidate memories, and rebuild connections, everything changes. The quality of your deep sleep improves. The nightly cleanup becomes more efficient, and you start waking up with a clarity and energy you haven't felt in a long time. That's exactly what the protocol I'm about to show you does. And it starts with something completely accessible. Grab a pen and paper because this is simple, inexpensive, and you won't need to leave the house to start today. 30 to 45 minutes before bed, you're going to make a drink with 3 basic ingredients: hot water, fresh lemon juice, and grated ginger. Bring 10 ounces of water to a boil. Once it starts boiling, lower the heat, add about an inch of freshly grated ginger, and let it simmer for 3 minutes on low heat. Turn it off, let it cool slightly, then squeeze in 1 whole lemon. If possible, zest a little of the peel first, since that's where the highest concentration of active compounds lives. If you want to sweeten it, a teaspoon of raw honey works perfectly and adds extra antioxidant compounds on top. Drink it slowly. No rushing, no screens. Why does this work? Lemon contains flavonoid compounds that research has identified as capable of reducing inflammatory markers specifically in the central nervous system.
compounds that can cross the blood-brain barrier, the protective layer surrounding the brain, and act directly where inflammation is causing damage. Ginger, in turn, has well-documented anti-inflammatory properties and improves blood circulation, ensuring that oxygen reaches brain tissue more efficiently during sleep, which is precisely when neuronal regeneration is most active. This isn't magic. It's your body receiving the tools it already knows how to use. Tools it was asking for, and you simply weren't providing.
There's also a third element that significantly amplifies the effect of this drink: breathwork. Before or right after drinking it, do 4 cycles of 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. This breathing pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and recovery mode, and actively lowers cortisol levels. When cortisol is elevated during sleep, it directly sabotages the very brain-cleaning process you're trying to enhance. 4 cycles, once a day, every night before bed. I need to be honest with you about expectations, because you deserve the truth, not an empty promise. You're not going to wake up tomorrow with the memory of a 20-year-old. But if you stay consistent with this protocol, there's a progression that repeats itself with striking regularity in everyone who actually applies it. In the first week, the most noticeable change tends to happen in sleep quality. Waking up with less of that heavy head feeling, a morning alertness that arrives a little faster, energy that lasts a little longer before it drops off. It might sound small described like this, but when you actually experience it, it's the clearest signal that your nightly cleanup process is starting to work better. In the second week, what I call clarity windows start to appear. Moments throughout the day when your thinking seems to flow more easily. Words come faster in conversation. You can hold your focus on a task for a longer stretch without that feeling of your mind constantly trying to escape to nowhere in particular. Small wins, but stacked together, they completely change the tone of the entire day. From the end of the first month, with the habit established and the cumulative effect working in your favor, the progressive reduction in chronic inflammation begins to produce more stable, more visible effects, visible to the people who live with you. That's when most people can look back and see the real difference. Not as a dramatic moment of sudden transformation, but as that solid, gradual realization that you're more present, sharper, more yourself. All of this depends on one single thing: consistency. Not perfection, consistency. Every night, without skipping. The glymphatic system doesn't work in episodes. It thrives in an environment you build night after night, deliberately and patiently. This recipe is real. This habit works. But I would be profoundly dishonest with you if I stopped here without telling you what happens with a large number of people, especially those who are over 45 or 50 years old. They do everything right. They drink the tea every night. They sleep better. They notice a real improvement in the first few weeks. And then they hit a point where the progress slows down or stops completely. The clarity improves, but never quite reaches where it should. The memory gets better, but still fails at the moments that matter most. The effort they're putting in just isn't producing the result it deserves. And they can't figure out why. It's not a lack of dedication. It's biology, again. With age, something happens that medicine calls reduced bioavailability. It means our ability to absorb and actually use the active compounds in the foods we consume declines progressively and significantly. Stomach acid decreases. Digestive enzymes become less efficient. The intestinal lining loses part of its transport capacity. And the practical result is that a considerable portion of the neuroprotective compounds that enter through your mouth simply never reach their destination, lost along the way, metabolized before reaching the central nervous system, never crossing the barrier that protects the brain. You can be doing everything right and still only capturing a fraction of the real potential of these substances. That's why science went beyond what nature offers in isolation. That's why there's a second step in this journey. The world's leading neuroscience research centers have reached a conclusion that changed how we think about brain health. It's not enough to consume the right compounds. You have to ensure they actually arrive where they need to go, at the right concentration, at the right time. It was from that conclusion that advanced formulations emerged, combining multiple neuroprotective compounds in doses and delivery formats specifically engineered to overcome the absorption barrier that age naturally creates. Compounds that would already have an effect in isolation, but that combined in the right ratio produce a synergistic effect, where the total result is far greater than the sum of its parts. We're talking about highly concentrated natural origin extracts with high bioavailability, combined with compounds that act directly on the energy metabolism of neurons, the mitochondria, which are the power plants of every brain cell. When those power plants start working at full efficiency again, the difference you feel isn't gradual, it's fast. Sometimes surprisingly fast. We're talking about highly concentrated natural origin extracts with high bioavailability, combined with compounds that act directly on the energy metabolism of neurons, the mitochondria, which are the power plants of every brain cell. When those power plants start working at full efficiency again, the difference you feel isn't gradual, it's fast. Sometimes surprisingly fast, and that's exactly where the difference lies between slowly improving with natural habits alone and experiencing a real, accelerated transformation. I need you to understand what's possible when both elements, the nightly habit and the advanced support, work together. Because the reports from people who've combined the two are consistent in a way that's impossible to ignore. In the first 3 days, the most common change people describe is in sleep. Not just sleeping better, but waking up with a different quality of presence, as if the mind is cleaner first thing in the morning, without that warm-up period that used to drag on for hours. Between day 4 and day 7, the reports start getting emotional. A 58-year-old woman described it like this. She was in the middle of a conversation with her daughter, telling a story, and mid-sentence, she spontaneously remembered a detail from 20 years ago that she had never been able to retrieve. It wasn't an effort, it just came. And she stopped, genuinely by her own brain. A 62-year-old man shared that for the first time in years, he read 40 pages of a book in one sitting without losing the thread. He didn't reread a single page. He reached the end of the chapter knowing exactly what had happened from beginning to end. Another person described the feeling as having a veil lifted from my head that I didn't even know was there. She only realized how foggy she had been once the fog was gone. These aren't extraordinary cases. They're the pattern for people who combine both elements of the protocol consistently. And the common thread through all of these stories is speed. Not months of waiting to see something, days, sometimes less than a week to feel like the brain is responding in a completely different way. The answer lies in the difference between waiting for your body to absorb and process compounds through the standard digestive route, which, as we've seen, becomes less and less efficient with age, versus delivering those compounds already in the format your body can use directly. Think of it this way. It's the difference between handing someone a pile of raw materials and asking them to build a house, versus handing them materials that are already cut, shaped, and ready to assemble. The end result might be the same, but the timeline is completely different. And for the brain, which works with compounds at a microscopic scale through very specific transport mechanisms, that difference in format can mean weeks or months less before you reach the result you're looking for. That's why people who use only the home recipe see results, but gradually. And why people who add the advanced formulation to the protocol experience an acceleration that seems out of proportion to the effort, but has a very clear biochemical explanation. Before I show you the full protocol, I have to be real with you about something. The advanced formulation I'm talking about is not something you'll find everywhere. The specific combination of compounds, in the right dosage with the bioavailability that actually makes a difference, is only available through a limited number of sources, and supply is genuinely restricted. This isn't a sales tactic, it's the reality of working with high-quality concentrated natural extracts that take time to produce properly. Right now, there is stock available, but based on how quickly this video tends to reach people, I can't tell you that will still be the case by the time you're reading this. What I can tell you is that if you're watching this and thinking, I'll come back to it later, later is often when the window closes. The link is in the pinned comment below this video. The current pricing is also only available for a limited time, so if you're ready to stop settling for gradual and start experiencing fast, now is the moment. Go check the pinned comment before you close this tab. Let me pull everything together so you have a clear picture of the path starting today. Every morning, commit to at least 20 minutes of movement outdoors. It doesn't need to be intense or complicated. A comfortable paced walk is already enough to stimulate the production of BDNF, the compound your brain uses to form new neural connections and consolidate memories. The combination of movement with natural morning light also regulates your circadian rhythm, which on its own already improves the quality of the deep sleep you'll have that night. Throughout the day, progressively reduce your intake of refined sugar-rich foods, especially after 6 or 7 in the evening. Sugar is one of the most powerful activators of silent inflammation that exists. Consuming it in the hours before sleep is, from a brain health standpoint, the exact opposite of what you want to do. It's like putting out a fire in the morning and lighting it again at night. You don't need perfection. You need a consistent trend in the right direction. Every night, 30 to 45 minutes before bed, prepare your lemon and ginger drink. Follow it with 4 cycles of 4-7-8 breathing. No screens during this ritual. Just you, creating the conditions for your brain to do the work it was designed to do. And if you want to make sure that all of this effort actually reaches your brain with the full force it deserves, especially if you're over 45 and suspect absorption may be holding you back, the link is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. Don't let stock run out before you decide. The people who act today are the ones who feel the difference by next week. I know it can feel like the forgetfulness is here to stay. That mental slowness has become your new normal. That the sharper, more present, more confident version of yourself got left somewhere in the past. But what modern neuroscience shows, with increasing clarity, is that the adult brain has a capacity for recovery that has been dramatically underestimated for decades. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, reorganize its networks, recover from damage, doesn't disappear with age. It just needs the right conditions to show itself. You're not fighting against time, you're learning to create those conditions. And the difference between people who age mentally and those who maintain clarity and presence throughout their lives isn't mysterious genetics or luck. It's exactly this: habits that build the right environment for the brain to do what it already knows how to do. You made it to the end of this video. That already says something about you. It says you're not willing to simply accept this and move on. And that is the only starting point that matters. Before I go, I want to ask you something. What was the specific moment that made you realize something was different? Was it a slip that embarrassed you in front of someone? The feeling of being in a conversation but not really being present? That mental exhaustion that doesn't lift even after a full night of sleep? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and what you share helps me create the next video even closer to what you actually need to hear. If this video resonated with you in any way, leave a like. It's what tells the algorithm this content needs to reach more people who are going through the same thing and don't yet know there's a way back. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video, because in the next episode, I'm going to show you which foods you're probably eating every single week that are actively feeding the very inflammation that's been stealing your memory, and how to swap them out for simple, affordable options that do the complete opposite. Take care of your brain. It holds everything you are, everything you've lived, and everything you're still going to experience.